I guess I'm officially welcoming our readers to this probably one-time podcast because I don't know if I can manage to do it again. But yeah, this is a conversation about Phantom of the Arena and Phantom of the Archipelago with Taya and two of her betas. So, Taya, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Thea, also known as Aleteia, and many, many other names in my real life. I'm the author of the fic. I'm currently 25 years old, working full-time as a software developer, and I discovered How to Train Your Dragon, I think what is it now, 3 or 4 years ago, and just instantly fell in love with it and started writing this fic. I love it very much. And in my personal life, I recently started living together with my boyfriend. So I guess you can say that the sort of misery I project upon my characters in their love lives in fiction doesn't translate to real life, because I'm actually very happy. And you can find me on Tumblr at Aleteia -ff, and of course on Archive of Our Own at Aleteia, and I believe on fanfiction.net. I think it's also Aleteia, but I'm actually not sure anymore. But yeah, that's about me in short.
Perfect. Next, Maya.
Hi. Well, I'm Maya. I'm almost 25. Well, almost in a couple months. So you do the math.
Okay, I figure out her birthday.
A late and early birthday. Yeah, well, I'm a translation student, currently interning in game localization, which is a lot of fun. Well, I am a reader / beta / friend / everything you want me to be.
Sometimes win, sometimes not.
Sometimes I'm the villain. No, I'm not.
You're like Grandma.
And I watched the first How to Train Your Dragon movie when it came to the theaters with my friends, and then I didn't watch it again until the second one came out and everyone was gushing about it, and I thought, oh well, just rewatch it. We'll see what happens. And well, I'm still here and I'm never going to leave.
Famous last words. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. That's the same thing I thought when I checked out Phantom of the Arena. I think I saw some fan art during chapter, I don't know, what was it, 25 or something. It was the spoiler alert, first kiss. Was it the first? It was the one on Toothless.
Yeah, that was the second one, but like the first one where they knew who they were.
Yeah, the first one would have been hard to draw, I think, in the dark. So I checked it out, and I, didn't leave that one either, so I'm still here. Yeah. You can find me on C Green Meets Grey and Tumblr. I think that's it.
And what's your username?
Yeah, that's the one.
There. What's your username on those sites?
Yeah. Well, Secret -meets.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, you said it so fast. That's my fault. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Secret -meets -grey with an E on Tumblr and on AO3.
Also write Hunting the Dragon fit too. But just throwing that out there. Okay, so I guess I should just quickly introduce myself as well. I am known as Celtic Tree Muffin, I think, on Discord and Tumblr, but on AO3, I think I'm just Celtic Blair. So I also have some fics. Please don't read them. I can't handle the attention at all. So I barely published, but then I was pushed into it by very nice people who bullied me into publishing. So I came into the fandom in 19, right as the third movie was coming out. I actually saw the third movie first with my kids, and so I guess that's the clue. I'm older than Taya and Maya. I'm 34. And I went to go see it with my kids. I had no idea what the movie was about. Fell in love with it watching the last one, so of course I had to go back to the other two. And then, yeah, I found out that there was such a thing as fanfic after that. I was very new to the idea of fandom. And I found Taya's story. And I think I got lucky with the fact that she had already had, I think, 20 chapters by the time I started reading. So I got to have like a good, nice binge. And then I got to be part of the regular updating. But I know that we went back and looked at what my first comment was, because I don't comment until I finish whatever chapter I'm like just finished, if it's already an established fic. And it was the chapter where Hiccup and Astrid get together. They have some tub time. And oh gosh, I'm starting to blush already. I said anything but referencing that scene. I'm enjoying reading this because I'm just a big baby about that kind of stuff. So, anyways, that's how I got started. I got started as a reader, and then Tay and I talked because I kept pestering her on Tumblr and trying to tell her she needed to go to bed because I knew it was late in Europe. She's like, Mom. I was like, but I am a mom, so this is hard. And then eventually I was very kindly asked to be a beta for Phantom of the Archipelago. So I think that kind of establishes who we are, how we came to it. Anyways, but so this is just kind of like a Q&A of behind the scenes, how Taya created the story, what was her inspiration. I think some of it is obvious, but also it's a way for Maya and I kind of to help or give our perspective of some of those behind the scenes moments of this story and this series that Taya's writing. So the first question is, what drew you to the story idea?
The story idea. Well, it was back in 2018. I just checked actually when I started writing, and I didn't realize it was almost 4 years ago already. But what kind of happened is that I went on exchange to Italy. And I was spending 4 months there, and especially during the first month I was there, I was very homesick, and I also got pretty like regular sick. So I was in bed for an entire week with a fever, and I did two things during that period. I watched How to Train Your Dragon movies multiple times because I had just discovered them like a few weeks before that, and I found them very consoling. And I believe I also started watching Race to the Edge at that point, the Netflix series. And then I also listened to a lot of The Phantom of the Opera. And I started reading fan fiction, and I was introduced to this idea of Hiccup leaving before the arena fight with the monstrous nightmare. And that just sort of caught me and inspired me. And I was, at one point, I was like, what if Hiccup if I spin my own story like that, because I got it, I was very inspired by that, and I give it a bit of a Phantom of the Opera feeling, because I really liked that idea in the musical of this phantom persona who wasn't really seen at all, only heard, and who just really intrigued the main character, who would be Astrid in that case. So that's how the idea sort of came to be. And it just, as I started writing, because I think I started writing nearly as soon as I got that idea, it just sort of developed into the story it is today.
And then what would you say, like, was your process similar to how you write now, or was that a learning curve in terms of like getting your outline ready, and like how much of the story did you have developed when you first started posting?
I think when I first started posting, and I looked, but I don't think I have the notes anymore, unfortunately. But when I just started posting, I think I had the main outline of the story in my head to be like, okay, Astrid and Hiccup meet. At one point, she figures out that he is Hiccup and that he isn't this phantom figure. They get together, everything is nice for a while, but he eventually gets too extreme in his ideas, and they turn against each other. And I'm not sure, I think at one point he even died at the end of the story, but I think that very quickly changed to him leaving. So that was always like the main outline I had in my head, but how those plot points were actually filled in changed a lot over time, because I think originally Hiccup did way, way, way worse things at the end of the story than he did right now. Like, he actually went through with some of the things that I now, like burning down Burke, that I now only had him threaten or consider to do, because I felt I had to even out his character at the end, to give it more of a bittersweet ending, rather than a sort of, okay, well, good luck with that, you didn't deserve her to begin with kind of ending.
Yeah. Gosh, if you had killed him off, I can't even imagine the reaction. Oh, no, that's so crazy to hear. Yeah, it's interesting to hear like how it developed over time. Now, at what point in your story did you introduce Nymphy as a beta into the fic?
I think it was about halfway through. I think it was about the time that I had to write the first sexual scenes for them. Because I remember feeling very, very nervous about that, because I had never written anything like that. And it's also, I feel that those kind of scenes, if they don't work, they don't work, and they can actually be sort of like ew for the audience.
Yeah.
So I think she came along at around that time, like just past or around the midway point of the story, which was awesome, because I finally had someone to tell what was going to happen in the rest of the story. Because for the readers at that point, they had Astrid and Hiccup, they had just gotten together and everything seemed to be going fine, but I knew, and I was just like dying to tell someone that it wouldn't end well for them.
I still can't believe that you're writing happy scenes, knowing like that's pretty impressive to me, actually, to be in the headspace of like, yeah, this isn't going to end well.
Mm-hmm.
So, Maya, do you want to talk about how you came on and what kind of how you served as a beta? Because it was different than just having someone read to help bounce off ideas, but also like right before you post it, right? I know that there's like they had different roles as betas, right?
I think I don't remember what point it was, but then Taya asked me and I think a couple others to like proofread chapters, and we didn't know what was going to happen. We were like those proofreaders who were like literal proofreaders.
You were in the dark as to where the chapter was going, let alone the whole
Yeah.
thing with the wall. Yeah.
We were the lab rats, basically. And then I think after the story ended, she asked if I wanted to continue as a beta, and then she talked a lot about her ideas for the sequel, and now I know stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
So good.
I think it was towards the end indeed, because Nymphy and we both knew where the story was going. So I just wanted to make sure that those chapters at the end, that they had the impact I wanted them to have. And I wanted to know what the response would be by people who didn't know that it was going to end this way, and who hadn't at that point, I think, for over half a year, had already been like, oh no, we're going to break everyone's hearts at the end.
Oh man, I will never forget talking to my friend Laura on Tumblr and being like, my tummy doesn't feel good about this. Something. Oh, no. Just ignore that. They're happy. They're in love. They'll figure it out. It's a love story. It's fine. Like, it's fine. And then,
Are you going to introduce #Team Baby?
yeah, exactly. I am co-founder of #Team Baby. And then saying to Taya in a Tumblr private message, hey, I'm a bit nervous about the Odysseus reference here that you planted when, like, she says she loves him. It makes me a little nervous. And you're like, oh, yeah? Tell me. Give me your page. And then it was the classic Voldemort hugs Draco Malfoy meme. I got quite a bit.
I did find some of my notes, like from back before the story was finished, and I found now this is from March 2019. It's the last time I edited this file, and it literally says like the question "how to end?" ? And I had 4 options. I had two bad endings, like the first one being that Hiccup would destroy Burke and might even lose Astrid in the process. The second one, that Hiccup died. Then I had a happy ending, like an epilogue or something, like involving beating the Red Death and a reconciliation between the characters. But I see that I have like in bold, like, no, it's going to be musical inspired. Hiccup reconciles with Astrid and Stoic, but then chooses to leave everything behind. So it's kind of funny to see that I actually still had those other options written down.
That late in the game, man.
And what's very interesting to me is that the masquerade chapter with the wedding of Stotloud and Ruffnut, I have no notes on that whatsoever. And I think it's still one of my favorite chapters to date, but apparently I didn't have that idea yet at all at that time.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely like a reader favorite. Like everybody had such a response to the Masquerade chapter. Because I think it was so fun to finally see everyone together because they'd been so isolated in, their love shack or whatever you want to call it. And even though they didn't know it was Hiccup, just the like getting to see all of those people interact together was really, I think that's part of why it was so memorable for readers. So speaking of like your 4 different endings, why did it ultimately have to end this book of the series the way that it did? I'm calling these books, if you straight up wrote full-fledged.
I think because it was the only way that I felt was justified for the characters. Like I didn't want it to end in a good way for Hiccup because he didn't deserve it. He had arguably manipulated an entire village, including the woman he loved, and that's not a thing a nice person does. But at the same time, I didn't I didn't want to write a nearly 300,000 word story where there wasn't some sort of hope at the end or some sort of closure that wasn't just sadness, because I didn't feel that the characters deserved that either, because like beneath all of the scheming and arguably a quite toxic, unhealthy relationship, there was a genuine love that the characters had for each other, and also a genuine love that Stoic still had for his son, for Hiccup. So to have all of those characters go through that and then have the story end badly didn't sit right with me, and then to have everything just be okay didn't sit right with me either. So that's why I decided to go for this ending, which is inspired by the musical The Phantom of the Opera, where the Phantom at the end also realizes that what he had been doing is wrong, and that he should, at least for the time being, get out of the lives of the people he's hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you had genuinely ended it in a very like happy, saccharine way, it wouldn't have served that story that you spent so much time and like blood, sweat, and tears on. I think it would have ended up being fan service that then wouldn't have made it as memorable of a fic in the long term, if that makes sense, because it is, to me, it reads like a classic novel. It feels so complex and
that's
I gush over you, but I genuinely like it was such a well written piece of writing that had nothing to do, honestly, like I could have expected to read this in a book I picked up at Barnes and Noble, and it had nothing to do with it being like it just was, to me, that quality, especially because I hadn't come from years of reading fanfic up until that point. So not that I had higher expectations of writing, but I've read so much more classic literature that this felt very on par with what I grew up reading.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
I'm not saying it to kiss her butt, you guys. It's not how I'm saying it. I just want to point that out. Okay, so let me give you like a gimme question. Maybe not, actually. Who is your favorite character that you wrote?
I mean, isn't it obvious?
It's probably not Hiccup.
I think it's Alexander, personally.
No, I think it's definitely Hiccup. I mean, he's the entire focus, the entire main. Like he is both the protagonist and the antagonist in the story, even though he's not the one telling it. He's very much the main character, and I just love, like, I love his canon version of him to death, and I also love this version of him to death, although I'd rather be in a relationship with the canon version of him, because wow, Phantom Hiccup has a lot of baggage. But no, I really like him, although like I've also just enjoyed writing like scenes for the smaller characters in the story. Like, I think Tough Nut is always a joy to write. It's just like when I write him, he just comes out of my fingers saying like weird stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is something Tough Nut would say.
So you're saying he's not a tough nut to crack?
Exactly. And though I really started out the story with this, of course, this idea about Hiccup, but throughout the story and throughout writing it, I think I was actually the most sympathetic towards Stoic, and I felt so bad for him, and like my heart hurt for him every time I gave him a chapter. So I just gave him more and more and more and more and more chapters, because there were, like, in my original story idea, there were no scenes for him at all. So that really like gradually evolved as I fell in love with writing him and for writing like the grief of a father, so to say.
No, you gave him so much more depth than obviously canon Stoic even has. Even with like having his wife no longer around, you don't feel that grief the way that you presented it in this story, and I just think that was so beautiful. It felt so genuine, and it helped tie us back as the readers to birth. Like birth still was ever present because of that grief that existed, even though I know Astrid was trying to get back or to save birth, but there was that emotional connection in him that helped to keep that establishment there for us as the readers, I think.
I really enjoyed making like Hiccup and Stoic each other's villain, because Stoic was always the villain in Hiccup's mind. Like from the moment he left Burke and his feelings sort of soured towards his father, and then for Stoic, the Phantom was this mortal enemy that he didn't know how to beat, and who took the girl that he did still kind of view as his daughter-in-law, no matter how wrong that felt. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed like putting them against each other and really exploring that relationship, and also using it to show the readers that even though they, at that point, just like Astrid, were probably kind of in love with this Phantom version of Hiccup, mm-hmm. that he is a bit of a twisted person, and that he wasn't telling Astrid everything, and that he was really playing the game from both sides. And what I tried to do, and what I also got from the comments that it worked, is that even though everything seemed to be going great on the Astrid side of things, that because of the Stoic side of things, readers kind of got this uneasy feeling that something would go wrong. And then, of course, it did. It went spectacularly wrong. But it was a really nice tool to use. And I don't know if like Hiccup blowing up at the end in the way that he did would have worked as well if we had not seen him really be the most wicked version of the Phantom from Stoic's perspective.
Mm-hmm. It's also complex. The story is so complex, the characters are so complex. And then what did I do? I memed them with vines.
Oh my gosh, but that is one of my I'm going to add the link to that, Maya, because it is one of my favorite things when I'm having like a really crummy day. I'll just go and watch it, and it just is like, it is perfection. I mean,
it is
so good.
They are so on spot.
It was a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, well, it's fun to watch as well. So kind of on that, what were some of your favorite like fan reactions that you had? I know I do want to talk about some of the little fun things, little silly things that came about just from reader response. And
I think like in general, just getting to talk with all the readers and the channel I have on Discord, that's just like a perpetual joy for me, because it really gave me the feeling that people were invested, and it motivated me to keep going, and especially when I was still on a regular update schedule, to keep pushing out those updates, even if I wasn't always feeling like writing. It would motivate me to still, well, I would say pick up the pen, but I write digitally, to still start writing, and then I would always get into it. And I think what singular event moved me the most was the celebration that you guys organized on the day I posted the final chapter. Like just recently, I was going through Tumblr, like through my old posts, and I found all of those mentions again, like all the art I received and all the thank yous, and even an actual cake, and that just, I don't know, it brought tears to my eyes, and it also kind of makes me feel guilty at the same time that I cannot write as much anymore as I used to, because the love I've received from this fandom, it really, really helped me as a person. Like it really felt as a safe haven for me.
Oh, we love you.
I love you too.
You gave us something special, and I think that readers wanted to show you, how much that story meant to them. And stories have that power, that they can be a source of comfort in hard times, or just, a good thing to curl up with even on a good day. Just that what you brought to us as a fandom and a community, I think, we wanted to show you, our love in the way that we could, because you gave us that story. So where are we now, and what are your plans moving forward?
So where we are now is like a little part into the Phantom of the Archipelago, which is arguably the outline I have for it, which is like relatively complete. It's huge. It's really long, which also makes it kind of daunting. But I do still really, really wish to continue on it, because I think it's the story that I want to tell. It's the story of Hiccup coming back to Burke and really seeing and really internalizing the damage he has done in the first story, which I felt I never really got to focus on, because it was really about Stoic and Astrid and Hiccup, and everyone else didn't matter, and Astrid also wasn't on Burke for a long time, and to cover those things, it would simply be out of scope. But in order for someone to come back, you suddenly have to face those things that you've done, and I think that's just a really interesting story to tell, and really interesting to see how this Hiccup will deal with that. And also it gives me the opportunity to introduce some characters, in particular Valka. She's a confirmed character to appear in this story, that I think it would be very interesting to see this version of Hiccup interact with.
Mm-hmm. He's going to have some things to say, I think.
And of course, the absolute the most important character, the stick, which is a long inside joke story.
Yes, absolutely.
There is this theory within the Discord channel in which we discussed this story. There was this theory that Hamish would discover Hiccup and instantly beat him with a stick to interrogate him. I've always rejected that theory. I don't think it's realistic for a 5-year-old, but I do very much embrace the meme and the amount of stick emojis that we put into the chat.
Yes, yeah, no, it's so great. Speaking to the future of the next series in this bit, yeah, what you spoke about Valka being a confirmed character. Who are some of our other confirmed characters that you are excited to write?
I think I'm excited to write Eret. I already got like 2 chapters for him, and I have quite an interesting journey planned for him, so to say, but it's really difficult for me to say anything about that without spoiling. Also, because I think anyone who I've seen it guess hasn't gotten it right so far. What's going to happen next? So I can't really
because it's a lot that's going to happen to him.
Yeah, exactly. But I think even like the next points in the story, they didn't exactly get right. But I think that's also because the people who aren't betas don't know the full scope of it. So, but I think I got an interesting story planned for him, and I think Vigo is also a character I'm excited to introduce because I just think he's one of the greatest characters in the series, and I'm just excited to get more of a look at Berg in its entirety, and especially like the original Dragon Riders, of course, like Snotlout and Roughnut, they got their one spotlight chapter in the previous story, but we don't really know much about them at this point. Like they have a daughter, how weird is that? Like they are actual parents and they have responsibilities somehow. And like everyone sort of
remember what's already written and what I know, and I'm like, don't say anything.
it's very difficult.
And all those conversations on the server channels. Oh man!
Right, because we talked about enough on the server. So, right. You know, Roughnut and Snotlout. This is so hard. What do we know? What do we not know? I mean, we know everything, but like, what is public knowledge? What is not?
Everything.
It's public knowledge that they have a daughter and that Toughnut is often a babysitter, which I think is just a role that suits him so well because I think deep down he's very caring. I mean, we've seen him in Race to the Edge with Chicken. Chicken was his everything. Chicken was his life. It was amazing.
Yeah. No.
And of course, then there's of course Fish Legs and Heather as well, which I'm excited to explore further as well, because it's really interesting that if it hadn't been for Hiccup, they would never have met because he actually introduced them to each other at Snotlout and Roughnut's wedding. Yeah. So there's this weird sort of, okay, thank you, but we still think you're a lunatic kind of dynamic. So yeah, a lot of things I'm excited about, and also some new characters who are a bit of like, they are like inspired OCs who I'm very excited to write about. And they will actually, I recently finished a draft of a new chapter, as in I wrote down all the words, but I haven't proofread it myself yet. But 2 of those new kind of OC characters will be introduced in that chapter. So that's very nice. I feel like at this point the story is really still in the point of like setting up and introducing all the players, and then we can really get going and also get back into the more Astrid and Hiccupy stuff, which I know everyone is looking forward to. But then again, she also said to him like, okay, you keep your distance until you prove I can somewhat trust you, which I think is very sensible of her. But of course, we'd all like them to fall back into each other's arms. And in some cases, we would like them to make even more babies. But now's not the time for that.
I don't know what you're talking about, Taya. Again, I'm co-founder of Team Baby.
All into each other's arms and into each other's beds, of course.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those frustrating things of like, fine, you're right. The characters need to be served. Just like maybe a little pooch. Just get them through with like a little. Yeah, I don't know. No, I think it wouldn't be fair with the way that they're written to just have it be easy, because then what has Astrid been doing for the last 5 years? Like, so.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hard.
And I would ask you what you guys are looking forward to in the next story, but I think that's very dangerous territory because we might accidentally spoil something.
That's fair. Now, I will say what I have really loved so far that I think I'm not spoiling anything. I am obsessed with Stoic and Astrid's relationship. I love that. I think it's just so sweet. Yeah, I think him getting to support her because his son can't be there. It's just, it's good. It's good. I think it's maybe that's me being a parent, but like to know that we are people, we are not perfect. We try to do our best. We're definitely going to fail. We're going to mess our kids up somehow. But the opportunity for growth still exists. And I think that's really poetic and nice. And it's just, I'm glad that she isn't completely left out in the dirt by herself, trying to figure it out. That, to have the chief support of this very tight-knit community. It's a good, she's in a tough spot, but at least she has somewhat of a buffer for some of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like she's not alone.
Yeah. See, this is the part now that I'm like, oh, but then what more do I know? That's on me. I should have read what is public before we got onto this.
I think it's fine. I think it's just a sign that I need to start setting moments for myself to actually write, because that's the difficult thing right now. Like I started writing when I was a student and I had a lot of free time that I could sort of arrange how I wanted to, and now I work 40 hours a week, and I recently moved in with my boyfriend, which was a lot of work on the house, which has turned out beautifully. I'm really happy with it, and now I'm still sort of getting settled in this new place that we're living in and trying to see if I can build some connections with the community. But it's just like all of that is that I sometimes think like, oh, I want to write, but when? And I think that once things have quieted down a bit, it's my goal to sort of try and set like a set writing hour, maybe just to start with.
Yeah.
A week, just like when you want to get into working out, you have to force yourself to go and do it at certain moments, and then eventually you will just start craving it, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And I think I should start doing that, because I do really want to work on this story. And I also think that just writing, it's like good for your creative juices and for your own development. It's like I really enjoy playing video games and all that, but when you're writing, you're actually producing something.
Yeah, something that you can show. I like completely understand that to such a big degree with fic that I'm currently stalled out on. It's like I want to write the story. The story still so very much exists in my head. Obviously, I've had a lot of like life stuff that happened, but put that kind of on a hold. But I recently had a baby. I feel like I just
that takes some time.
And it was a really tough pregnancy, and just had gotten stalled out on writing. And I'm like, I don't want to give up on this story. I want to keep writing them, but I'm also a different person than I was when I first started it. So,
oh yeah.
Oh, I have to get back in that headspace. Okay, how do I get there?
Yeah.
So, creatively, like when you are writing, is there kind of a setup that you have? Do you for me, I know like I have a playlist of like songs that I just listen to on repeat. I know you did for the Masquerade chapter. I know that there were like specific things that you were listening to, but is that a always or is that a sometimes? How do you fit into the writing?
It depends. It depended a bit on what phase of the story I was like, because it was inspired by the Phantom of the Opera. I listened to that a lot while writing initially. Then, especially when I was writing some of the Hiccup and Stoic scenes, I listened to a lot of Iron Maiden and a lot of just sort of gothic rock.
Our friend Croc would have wanted you to listen to Sabaton.
Like, for instance, Can I Play with Madness by Iron Maiden, I thought was very nice to write Phantom Hiccup to, as well as Poison by Alice Cooper. Those
Poison!
were like,
Yes. Yeah.
Those were like two songs that just like got me in the mood for the story. Like incredibly. And now when I write, I mostly listen to a playlist that is made up of only instrumental music, save for a few, which has this sort of medieval Celtic video game spirit to it. Like it contains the entire How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack from all three movies. It contains quite some songs from The Witcher, from Dragon Age Inquisition, and just from from instrumental artists all around, like for instance Two Steps from Hell and things like that, because I find that I write the most peacefully if I listen to instrumental music, because then I don't have the words, the lyrics distracting me, and I think just this sort of medieval tone, it just brings me in the mood for the story the most. And it's just music I also discovered I really liked.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, what were you listening to when you were writing The Masquerade? Because you were like, I can't listen to this anymore. Like, I listened to too much of this. Was it like Celtic reels or...
It was the music they dance to in Scotland. Like, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but in Scotland they do Cayley dancing, which is like dancing in a group together, and which I also based the dancing of Hiccup and Astrid in that chapter on, like the experiences I had actually doing those dances in Scotland. And I listened to, so it's amazing music, but I'd listened to it so much that I needed a few days to get out of it again, because even when I went to bed I would still hear the bagpipes in my head.
That's so amazing. You're like, okay, enough. I'm out of the chapter now. And I think especially because that chapter was so unique in that way, but yeah, it's just funny that like specific.
But that makes me wonder, like, what were you guys' favorite chapters to read? Or just moments in the story, because I also don't have the chapter numbers in my head anymore.
Do you know, Maya? Because I'll have to think about it for a second.
I don't think I have like specific chapters that are favorites. It's a tough question. It's a tough nut.
I'm sorry.
I was excited about every new chapter and because every new chapter brought a story along, and I don't think.
I know when I got those updates, it was like, yes, time. I guess, you know I said I do think this based on like the response that you got on Tumblr, that The Masquerade was like a reader favorite chapter. I wouldn't say it was my favorite chapter, because then I started feeling really like, ooh.
This can't go now. This can't end well.
I don't like Mom, come pick me up.
I'm scared.
So that was the part where I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is nice. Let's see where this goes. Honestly, I would say that last chapter was so memorable, which maybe is a cop-out, but it was perfect. I think if you had ended it as devastating as it was, it was viscerally devastating. I cried. I was mourning. We were having a funeral for the end of this saga that had been so fun to be a part of, and every other week, because I think we posted twice a month. That schedule was, just getting to analyze it between chapters and how fun that was. And, but after the initial, oh my God, what just happened? I'm not okay. It was no, that was perfect. That's how it needed to end.
And I actually remember regarding the ending, it was the chapter in which Hiccup left was the second to last chapter. He didn't leave in the last chapters. It was the second to last chapter that he left Berg. And I remember posting that chapter, and then all the comments and the speculation, they were just oh, but how are you going to make him come back and make everything good in one chapter? And I was just sitting there I was just sitting there I know the last chapter was nearly 10,000 words. I think it was the longest chapter in the entire story, but he didn't come back. The only thing that I did put in that chapter, of course there was a lot in that chapter, the Hamish reveal. Right. And also, for the first time, a paragraph from Hiccup's perspective, which did feel very special to me because I'd spent the whole story writing about him, and this was the first time that I finally wrote from him.
Now, going into the next story, are we going to see more of a Hiccup POV, or is it still... Obviously, there are side stories, so it's not only going to be Astrid or Hiccup's POV, but is it still really more from Astrid this time, or is this really Hiccup's kind of story?
It's going to be, I think, or at least that's my current idea, 90% Hiccup point of view, because I like to write from the point of view of the character who knows the least, or at least who has to solve the mysteries or figure out the situation. And of course, in the previous story, that was Astrid and Stoic, both in their own way. And now it's Hiccup trying to discover this new world, what happened in the 5 years since he left it behind. And at the same time, it's also Aerith, who was attacked in the first chapter of the story, if I recall correctly, or the second, by this unknown foe, and who is also setting out towards something new. So I always like to pick the point of view of the characters that know the least, so to say. And I think at this point, it's definitely Astrid that holds some of the cards, and as well as the rest of Berg and Hiccup, who is on the mission to figure that out and to sort of play them in his own way. And I think it's interesting to see on the inside of his head. But that's the current plan. But it might still change down the line.
And that makes sense, I think, with what you have planned. It would be almost impossible to tell that from Astrid's perspective. What? Now I can't remember what. Again, I'm don't say too much. But
I mean, it,
we did do a flashback of Alexander, and there's no way that you could have shown that flashback from Astrid's perspective, or it would.
Yeah, that's also something I'm excited to do, to kind of write those flashbacks back to the time that Hiccup was with Alexander in Constantinople, and kind of see how those experiences there molded him into the character and the beliefs that he has. Because of course, like, his 5 years away didn't turn him back into canon Hiccup. It just gave him time to rest and to reflect and to sort of like make his thoughts more measured and less chaotic. But he's still not the Hiccup we know from canon. He's still different.
Right, his experiences were so different that that would be unrealistic to expect him to just be like the sweet Hiccup that we know and love.
Yeah, it's funny to think about. Okay, if you would throw the situations from How to Train Your Dragon 2 and How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World at this version of Hiccup, at Phantom Hiccup, would he react in the same way? And I think I've talked about this on Discord before, and I think the answer is a very decisive no.
Yeah.
I don't think Hiccup would have left. I don't think this Hiccup would have even concentrated all the dragons on Berg as the canon version of Hiccup did to begin with, which caused the whole problem that occurred in the third movie. I don't think Phantom Hiccup ever would have done that, because he would believe that intrudes upon the natural living space of dragons, and instead of having all dragons come to Berg as a safe haven, they should make sure that the normal places where dragons live are a safe haven. And I think that's a difference of opinion they would have, and I think it would be very interesting to see them spar about that, so to say. And I'm not saying one of them is right and one of them is wrong, but I do think they are different in their approaches.
Phantom Cup Mama, nobody's wrong. I was thinking of, I know we've discussed the, like, if Phantom Cup met canon Hiccup, what the reaction would be to canon Hiccup. He would just be like, wait, you don't have the horrible daddy issues that I have?
Exactly.
And like, that's what I could have had instead. Like, this is how this could have gone. Oh God, like.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's going to look at Canon Hiccup and be like, "Wow, you have clear skin." and I
Where are
am
your scars?
Yeah.
And I am much more of a badass than you.
Absolutely. Oh, it would be so much like posturing of like, you're a baby compared to me. I've lived through real things.
But then again, Canon Hiccup lost a leg, and Phantom Hiccup still has both.
Yeah, semantics. But I would be like,
oh my god, all the sarcastic jokes they would make about each other.
I wonder if it would end up being like the 3 Spider-Man together in Far From Our No Way Home. I have all those home titles. Just being like, I love you, man. Like, don't talk about yourself like that. You are worthy.
Aw, that would be pretty cute.
It would be cute. It would take a lot to get there, but maybe ultimately in 10 years' time.
And maybe Phantom Cup would tell Canon Hiccup, tell Astra to always drink the fucking tea.
And then Canon Hiccup would be like, but I already have 2 kids.
And a cool beard.
Yeah.
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 I mean, Yeah, no, Phantom Hiccup cannot grow a beard. It would only be on one side of his face.
Yeah. So I always visualize when we meet him on the island, like trying to shave and cut his hair. I always picture like Tom Hanks in Castaway, just that like probably straggly, like Wilson.
I mean, there's little difference between Wilson and Toothless, right?
Well, at least Toothless like just side eyes him, like, no, bro,
Yeah.
you don't look good. Like,
You don't got fashion.
I think that's also like like no one really seems to zoom in on that, but Toothless is also like a decidedly different Toothless from the one in canon. Like just because he's been complicit in so many things and also had different experiences. Like of course he's still the sarcastic goofball we all know and love, but I definitely think this Toothless has seen worse things than canon Toothless.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, his life has been at stake in a very different way than it was in canon. And I don't know, he's like more a little more scrappy. That's kind of how I Constantinople is just like them being like scrappy rapscallions, like little thieves. I know, it's very much like the Aladdin like opening sequence.
I listen to Aladdin music sometimes as well. Well, kind of theory crafting that period of Hiccup's life. It was like, okay, take Aladdin and make it gay and tragic.
So, I'm just like careful. I'm trying to be careful about just don't say too much. But no, I don't think I can. Sorry, I don't think I can ask a question.
No, probably for the best.
Yeah. It's been a minute since I've read the story, and I know I went back and like reread before we started proofing and betaing for Archipelago because I really wanted to like remember where we were in the story, what we had come from, and just make sure that we're continuing to serve the new story well. But it's interesting you brought up Toothless and how he's different. I remember that being kind of a strange thing about reading fanfic in this fandom because people have such a different perspective on how the dragons are portrayed. I don't know why I couldn't speak there. And so yours felt very much like what I had experienced in watching the films. So that felt more familiar, even if his characterization was different because of experiences. It didn't feel like, I don't know, that he was
almost, like it wasn't Toothless anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we did a nice job with that. I just kind of, the dragons aren't the reason that I like, and that's a personal thing. The dragons aren't the reason that I got into the fandom. I like the characters. I'm very character driven in terms of what I like to read. So
yeah, I think it's the same for me. Like I like the dragons, but they aren't the main focus of the story for me, and they are very much the supporting characters. And I think that also helps when writing stories, that if you focus too much on the dragons and give them a too different of a personality, I think it starts to feel like it's even further away from canon than if you shift the human characters somehow. Like it feels like the dragons are always more of a constant in how they behave and who they are. Like they are sort of this force of nature in a sense, whereas humans, they are fickle and unreliable and interesting.
Chaotic and destructive. Oh, so many good things that make writing interesting because themes
Uh-huh.
are
Yeah.
complicated.
And I just realized that I didn't mention like my favorite chapter in the
Oh,
first
yeah.
story, because or well, at least it was the most memorable chapter for me to write because it's the chapter I cried the most when I wrote it, and that was the chapter when Stoic figures out that. That Astrid went with the Phantom willingly and goes to Hiccup's grave to apologize. I cried and I
Oh,
cried and I cried so much. It's still one of my favorites because it was a bit of an emotional climax before like the real emotional climax, and I also really loved writing the duel between Hiccup and Stoic, but it was just that chapter where Stoic goes to Hiccup's remembrance stone, like that really left a long lasting impression on me when I wrote it. I was so exhausted by the end of it, but I still really love the end result
yeah.
to today.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because in the very beginning of the story, when Astrid goes to his remembrance stone, or whatever you want to call it, that's when I was like, I'm in. Like, this story, I'm gonna keep reading this because I had an emotional reaction to that, and then how he taunted her for going was just like, oh, you jerk! If you only understood like how much regret she has, and couldn't fathom. He just had no idea that the destruction of him leaving, had left behind. Maybe not in as big of a way as it was for him, but just still that like his choice affected people even after he had left initially. So that was a good one. Yeah. So but I'm so glad you said that because that's when I was like, okay, as a reader, I'm going to keep reading this. I'm very invested.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Oh, I think for me, the decision to keep reading was when after a whole ass long chapter, I didn't feel like it was this, how you sometimes start reading something and it's just full of typos or just sentences that don't make sense, or the writing is like when you read a sentence that goes or that describes people by their hair color, like, or their it's like the brunette did this and then the green-eyed friend did that, and you're like, oh my god, no, not again.
Like too much telling and not enough showing.
Yeah, and this Wattpad energy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's sort of like it took me a while to realize that as well, that it's okay if you just repeat their names because people mentally skip over that anyways. Like there's no emphasis on that in your sentences if you repeat someone's name. It's fine. You don't have to use synonyms for that. You have to use synonyms for everything that actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Ladies, I think I need to wrap this up. Unfortunately, I think I'm stapling more.
Yeah, I also
attention. What? Sorry.
I could talk about this endlessly, but I don't have anything I still have on my chest for now. But I do think I want to sort of make the commitment now to put out the next chapter before the end of July. Let's make that promise. I think that should definitely be doable. I should just make the time.
That's excellent news for me, because I'm looking forward to reading the chapter for
Yeah, not just you.
Well, you too, and our other betas as well. But yeah, so I think you might get held to that tip because you have some interest. So
Please do hold me to it. It always helps. If I feel like I'm disappointing people, that's a motivator.
We're bringing sticks to beat you up with.
Oh no! Oh no!
And more. Oh. All right. Well, this was really fun, and I'm interested to see what the reaction to this is. I just so very much wanted to, there are people that this is a beloved series to them, and there's continued to be interest even in the hiatus, and just wanted to let them know you were still here.
I'm still here. I'm still alive.
And I hope this was interesting to you guys. So
yeah, thank you for organizing it. It really appreciates me. It gets my writing fire burning again. Now I just have to.
Mine too, actually.
Well, go for it, Maya.
I'm so happy to hear that. All right. Well, this has been fun, and I will see you on the Discord. So talk to you guys later.
All right.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
See you, hear you.
Bye.